this Kwanzaa time that we are standing. And in the spirit of Kwanzaa, I thought I would give you a treat today. And I'm sure that you will agree afterwards that perhaps it's the greatest treat that you have had. Today we're joined by a friend of mine. And I don't know if the word friend is adequate because he has been more than a friend. He has been a mentor. He has been a business partner. He has been a brother. He has been a father. And I don't know if there's a word that we have that really expresses that kind of multiple role that a person plays in your life. It was my great good fortune that in spite of being separated from Maharaj by all these many thousands of miles between here and India, that out of his grace and his compassion, he was kind enough to send one of his own beloved sons to make sure that I got the Dharma correct. You see, sometimes when you're struggling in the valley, someone will come down from the mountaintop and take you so that you can see what they have been previously shouting to you. And so it was in this way, you see, that I first encountered the incredible being that is Ishwar C. Puri. And I thought that it would be criminal on my behalf if I deprived you all of having the same experience that I experienced. And he has been kind enough to take time out of his very busy schedule, time away from his own family and all of the many things that we all are involved in during these holidays to be here with us today. And without further ado, let us greet our brother, whom I affectionately call Puri Sa. Puri Sa, please. And perhaps Puri Sa will be moved out of his compassion to share with you his insights on sadhana and the role of the Master's grace on the path. And then afterwards, perhaps he will be even more compassionate and entertain some questions from you. Acha, please.
My good friend Bhagwan, Africa, brothers and sisters and friends whom I have known earlier and friends whom I am knowing today, I greet you on the celebration of Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a very recent movement in this country. Hardly 30 years, we never heard of it here. The name Kwanzaa may be new, but the celebration has been going on for thousands of years. The spirit of Kwanzaa can be traced back, even in literature, 4,000 years in the African continent. The spirit of Kwanzaa has existed even earlier than that. Throughout the world, wherever there has been the spirit of mystic knowledge that has come and been shared with human beings. we all want to find the truth. Mostly for one reason, we are unhappy. I find very few happy people looking for the truth. I find a lot of unhappy people because of their unhappiness, looking for the truth, looking for God, looking for salvation. It is the unhappiness of this world that makes us look for the truth. If you go around in this world, and I had a great opportunity to travel around the world, maybe 50 or 60 times around this globe, this earth. There's hardly anybody I can say who was happy. Some people looked happy from a distance. They were rich, they had big mansions, and they had all the food, services, automobiles, cars, television sets, all the creature comforts of the world, servants, slaves. When I had a chance to go and stay with them and spend 2 or 3 days, I found they were the most unhappy people. And none of these things was able to give them happiness. People try to find out the cause of their happiness, and it is very difficult to know why we are unhappy. When we look into our own self, we find that the real cause of unhappiness is that we are lonely. Loneliness is the cause of unhappiness. We try to overcome that loneliness by making relationships in this world, by acquiring things of this world. We think that these things will become ours, and then we will remove our unhappiness. All these acquisitions we do, whether of material things or of friendships and relationships, are of no avail, because we find at the end of our life that they don't belong to us, that they do not go with us. I am very happy today that we are meeting in a funeral home. There was one mystic, Kabir, in India, who said the best place to teach spirituality is in a cemetery or a funeral home. It should be a place where you are close to the knowledge of death. You should be sure that we are all going to die. When we know we are going to die, we look back again on the things that we have been trying to acquire, and we find none of those things go with us. In fact, it is only when we are attending a funeral, thoughts of God come to us more deeply than any other time. There is a story about the same mystic, Kabir, which is narrated in India. That one man wanted to go and meet him, so he went to his house and found that Kabir was not there. His wife, Mata Loi, was there. She said, well, Kabir has just gone to the funeral of somebody. In fact, he has gone to the cremation. You can go to the cemetery and go and meet him. He said, how will I recognize him? He says, Kabir thinks of the Lord all the time. And because of that, there is a bright halo around him and on top of his head. You will have no problem. When you go to the cemetery, you will see there is one man who is constantly thinking of the Lord, and therefore there is a light shining above his head. And from that you will be able to find out who is Kabir. So this man went to the cemetery, and there he saw a lot of people, and they saw the body of one person who had died being burnt in the crematorium. And he saw there was light on the heads of so many people. He did not know who was Kabir. He watched, and gradually the ceremony ended, and the people left the cemetery and began to walk out. As they left the gate, many of the lights were extinguished. As they walked another half a mile, most of the others were extinguished. When he walked back with the crowd, after a mile or so, he found there was only one man. on whose head the light was still shining. That was Kabir. We think of the Lord, but we forget it as soon as we go away from our place of worship, from our satsang, from our place where we are thinking of the Lord. A funeral home is great to remind us that death is inevitable for this human body. And therefore, whatever we are trying to acquire while in this human body is of no avail whatsoever. When we are in the human body, we take this physical world to be real. And that is why we go about touching things and say these are solid things, we like them. When we tell them that the truth is in the form of a spirit, we like to believe it, but we don't. We don't believe it. It's not as real as our body and is not as real as our physical world. Therefore, although the spirit world may be immortal, may be existing forever, although the Lord in spirit form may be inside us for all times, we cannot recognize it. We do not in fact believe it. If a person truly believes that God is in the form of a spirit inside us, that person cannot believe that this world is looking around is real and worth acquiring. A person who is conscious of the presence of God inside in spirit form can never run out to acquire anything of this world. Neither money, wealth, fame, fortune. They are all like running after shadows to get something. Therefore, such a person will never look out for anything that it is worth acquiring. Nor will such a person think anything worth worshipping outside of the spirit within. If a person wants to remove loneliness by acquiring the company of a permanent immortal spirit, he looks around for things that are not spirit, that are not even spiritual. What is it outside this, in this world, outside our body, that we can call truly spiritual? And what can we worship in this world? We go out and look at the things, the objects, the stones and the mountains and the valleys and the trees and the plants. They are not worth worshipping. They don't even speak to us. We imagine what they are saying. We love to see these natural things, but they are not worth worshipping because we do not see the spirit. Are the birds that sing in the sky worth worshipping? There are people in India who are worshipping birds, thinking they are the vehicles of gods and goddesses. Are these birds worth worshipping? When you go and hear their chirping, they chirp nice and sweet. They tweet about, but they do not talk to us. When we interpret their chirping, it is our own mind interpreting it. We don't even know how to call these birds. And the birds are therefore not worth chirping. Like a little boy told his mother, "Mama, there's a void." The mother said, "No, child, that is a bird." "No, Mama, that's a void." Mother said, "No, that's a bird." And he said, "But Mama, it chirps like a void." There the mother understood. It's just a matter of language. It's just a matter of the sound we are making. It means nothing. These words that we use to express anything mean nothing unless there is a spiritual content to them. By describing these things, we find that we are unable to find anything worth worshipping. We look at birds, animals, things, stones, none of them is worth worshipping. They don't speak to us. But there is someone who speaks to us, is a human being who speaks to us. We don't want to worship a human being. Why? We are human ourselves. We don't have to worship a human being. We want to worship the Lord. Particularly in democracies where we have been trained to live with the idea we are all equal. How can one human being start worshipping another human being? It's not possible. It's not real. It's not convincing enough. Therefore, we are left with nothing to worship in this whole world. Yet we are in a dilemma. Because we are in the physical body, we are taking only the physical things to be real. And if physical things alone are real, we have to find something physical to get our knowledge from. There is nothing physical that we can get knowledge from because we ourselves have the knowledge inside us. So we go back to the teachings of various spiritual masters who have answered this question. What is it in this world that is worth worshipping? What is it in this world that is worth getting to and finding your answers? And they say, there is nothing in this world worth worshipping. The only thing worth worshipping is the Lord Himself who created us. And the only thing that makes us have a contact with the Lord is going on to the very Spirit which makes us conscious and makes us alive. Therefore, to say there is anything outside of ourselves worth worshipping is a fallacy. The only thing worshipping is that which is within ourselves, enclosed in our spirit, enclosed in our consciousness, and arises from our knowledge that we are alive. The fact we can say, we are here, I am, that which says I am, contains the Creator and the Spirit, and therefore the only thing worshipping is within that I am. There's nothing outside worth worshipping, and there's no answer anybody can give you from outside. You go to all the religions of the world. It's amazing study. And they all say the same thing. You want to find the truth? Don't go outside anywhere. Go within your own self. They specify that while you are physical, while you have a physical body, and while you think this is a physical world, you want to find the truth. Go within this physical body. Even if you want to find something non-physical, truly spiritual, it will only be found in the physical body while you are in the physical body. The answer is so clear. Do not waste your time going anywhere. Do not run anywhere. Stay within yourself and you will find the truth. That's a very good answer that has been given by all the spiritual masters, all the teachers, all the founders of modern day religions, and all the founders of religions that have gone away. Go within yourself and you'll find the truth. How come none of us follow that? How come we are running to the churches, temples, mosques? We are running to all stone and brick built buildings outside. How come we are running to satsangs? How come we are running to meetings? How come we are running around the world to find the truth? And the very people who found the truth say, by running around anywhere, you cannot find any truth. You must stay still, stay where you are, and go within yourself, you'll find the truth. How come we don't heed this great message given by all the spiritual teachers? The reason is simple. We do try to go within, and we close our eyes to go within, and we see nothing but darkness. If we close our eyes and find darkness, how can we go within? There's a nice little story they tell in India of an old woman living in a village who was searching for something in the street light. Those old kind of lights which they used to put up with a lamp at night and extinguish in the morning, small village light. And she is looking very anxiously for something. A young man comes and says, "Ma'am, have you lost something? Can I help you?" She said, "Yes, son, I was doing some sewing with a needle and I dropped my needle and I can't find it." The young man said, "Ma'am, can I help you find it?" She said, "Certainly, son." So he also started looking. After a while he says, "Ma'am, have you any idea where you dropped the needle?" She said, "Yes, I dropped it in my house." But ma'am, why are you looking for it in the street? "Because I have no light in my house, my son." We laugh over the story. This is our story. The thing we have to find is within ourselves. We close our eyes, it's dark there, therefore we open our eyes and run into illusion to find it. How are we going to find it? This is our story. We are looking in the wrong direction. The direction to find the truth is not outside. It never was outside. It was always inside. And we can't go inside. There we are stuck with a dilemma. And we have been stuck with this dilemma for millions of years. How can we go inside when it's dark? And how can we look for it outside when it doesn't exist there? That's where we are stuck. We want to see the truth. We want to see the Lord. We want to see the Creator. But we want to see him in the form in which we accept reality. That's the physical form. Lo and behold, from time to time, the Creator walks in our midst in the physical form. That's the only form we are willing to accept. Not that is the form of the Creator. That is the form we are willing to accept. But the Creator comes in all the forms. Everything you see around you is the Creator. The Creator exists in everything, animate and inanimate. And more so, and more accessible in the animate things which can speak. And the highest of all these physical, animate forms in which the Creator exists is the human form. Back to square one, why should we go to a human being? We are a democracy. We are all equal. I must say that some countries and some nations in this world who had kings and monarchs had an advantage over us. Because they accepted that one person could be king, all powerful, and we are willing to worship a king. But when you come to a democracy like United States and the Constitution here there are no kings at all. We are all kings. In fact, the people who talk of the most royal stuff are those who have nothing in their pockets. Here there's a difference. We are all trying to be kings and none of us are kings. When the king walks in our midst, we don't recognize him. Because he's a human being. How do we recognize a king who walks like a beggar? Supposing a king walked like a king, would we recognize him? No. We would say, he is too high. We'll put him on a pedestal and we'll not talk to that king. How can we become friends with the king? Only if the king wears a mask, becomes incognito, wears a disguise that he's poor like us. When the king wears a disguise and becomes like us, we are willing to talk to him and be friends and share our heart's sufferings and our unhappiness with that person. And he can then take us back to the truth. What will he tell us? He will say, you may look at me like a human being, like yourself. I am not trying to tell you I have anything more than you have. We are both the same. The same spirit, the same Creator is in both of us. But if you really want to find, go within and I will tell you a way where the darkness inside will be dispelled and substituted by light. I can tell you that because it has so happened with me. I met a person who was a beggar. I met a person who was a carpenter. And I wondered why he was a carpenter when there were kings around him, physical kings. I met a person who was a weaver. And he was a weaver, weaving cloth, whereas he had the knowledge of the truth himself. There was a cobbler, mending shoes. And there were kings falling at his feet for the knowledge they got, and he kept on mending his shoes. Why did these people, who had the knowledge of the truth, who had manifested the light within themselves, who had actually experienced the Lord in spirit form while they were in their physical body, why did they continue to be so poor, like weavers and cobblers and carpenters and shepherds? Why? Because that was the only way we would accept them as our friends. We would never accept a king. India has had many kings. There was one king who wanted to know how people live, particularly in the forest where there are no facilities for them. He put on a disguise that he was a poor man and he walked into the forest. And there he met a man who was to chop wood and take it and sell the wood in the city, make a few bucks, come back, buy some food and feed his family and live on starvation diet every day. The king went and saw, he said, I have great compassion for this man. So he went to the man and said, look, brother, I am actually the king. He said, I don't believe that. He said, okay. Well, I am not the king, but I know the people, the ministers of the king. I don't believe that. Well, I don't know the ministers, I know the gatekeeper. He said, I don't even believe that. He said, come on with me, I'll show you. He said, I don't want to waste my time. The king tried his best to convince the man to come to the palace. And the man refused. He wouldn't believe. He said, you are a friend of mine because you have come to chop wood like me. I'll be a friend, but that's it. So the king chopped wood with the other woodcutter. And he went and sold, and they lived together, and they became friends. And when they were friends, the king said, let us today go to the palace and see if we can recognize some people. So by that time, he was a friend. He had begun to have trust in that man. The man was like him. Therefore, he could be a friend. Therefore, he walked with the friend up to the door of the palace. And the king gave a signal, and the guards saluted and opened the door. And this woodcutter said, I can't believe my eyes. I can't believe you can have this kind of a relationship with these guards, that they can open the palace door, and you know them so well, but still, you shown me. Okay, I'm willing to be with you up to this stage. He said, come inside. He said, no, we'll be shot by these guards. Come on, they've opened the gate for us. With great difficulty, the king persuaded him to enter the palace. Went to the office of the ministers, and he said, I know them too. I don't believe it, but let's see. With great difficulty, the king persuaded him to talk to the secretaries and the ministers, who of course recognized the king, who told them, keep quiet and lead us into the inner chamber. To cut a long story short, at every stage there was a disbelief on the part of the woodcutter. But as the king took him inside and said, I am going to introduce you to the real king. I know him personally. He said, I still don't believe it after all the miracles you have shown me of entering this palace. And he goes inside the royal chamber and sees the throne in front. And this simple woodcutter, who brings his friend woodcutter from the forest, goes and sits on the throne and says, I am the king. And the woodcutter says, if you were the king, why didn't you tell me in the forest? He said, I told you many times. Ultimately, I stopped telling you. You only came with me when I told you I'm a woodcutter. Do you believe that we are in the same state? It's our story. We are so lost in this forest that even the Lord, when He has to come in the form of a human being, we will not believe that human being. No, this must be an imposter. We have a very special machine attached in our head to our consciousness, which is called the mind. It's a very nice machine. It yaps. It's a great computer. It talks all the time. It never sleeps. We sleep, and that machine called the human mind never sleeps. Yaps all the time. It does good yapping. Sometimes we can make use of it, like we can make use of a computer. It's horrible when we don't make use of it, but that yap starts making use of us. That's horrible. Because when it yaps and we take it seriously and listen to it, it does nothing but two things. It creates doubt in our mind and creates fear in ourselves. That's the role of the mind. Don't blame it. It was supposed to create the doubt and the fear so that with truth we should be able to overcome it. It's performing its function so that we should know that the spirit of the Lord lies beyond fear, beyond doubt, beyond the mind. It's a message to us that if you think that by thinking several times you can find a solution, you'll never make it. In fact, people come to me and they say, we are certain of this thing. I said, are you sure? It's all right. Think about it a little further. And after 10 minutes, they're not sure. This thinking mind can make a thing, a certainty into a doubt. It is such a strong power, and yet it sits inside us. To overcome that, it's very difficult, especially when we find the Lord has come in a human form. Most of the time when Lord comes in human form, we don't follow. A few handful of people may like to follow. Most of us follow when He's dead and can tell us nothing. Most of us follow when He cannot say no. Most of us follow him when he speaks the same language that our mind is speaking. Most of us follow when the mind says, that's what he is telling me. Most of us follow the inner voice when it is the same voice as our mind that is creating the fear and doubt in us all the time. It's a very big difficulty for us. How to overcome this difficulty? Here are these people. We don't accept anything that is physical. Even spirit must become physical. The word that is spirit must become flesh before we'll acknowledge it. Yet when it's flesh, we want to crucify it. This is our state. We must kill the flesh because it is flesh. But we can't accept the word. It hasn't become flesh. What are we doing? What have we got out of our life? How can we be spiritual? This is the problem, dilemma facing us. How can a person, how can a human being carry with it the spirit of the Creator, Spirit of God, and communicate with us? There is one language. Fortunately, that language is not the language of the mind. Fortunately, that language is not the language of thought. Fortunately, that language does not require any time, it does not require any space. Fortunately, that language has no cause and effect relationship. Fortunately, that language comes spontaneously. Fortunately, we all know that language. That's the language of love. That's the only language that such a person who walks here can really transmit the Spirit into us. If we think that we can have the transmission through thoughts and words and books, we can be reading those books all our life and get nothing out of it. Except conceit, ego, haughtiness. I have read more than you. I tell you another story of a king you might have heard before. Another king in India, his name was King Janak. And he wanted to find the truth. He wanted to find the real truth, not the truth of scholarship, not the truth of high words, high sounding words. He called all his secretaries and ministers and he said, how can I find the real truth? I want to know why we are here. What's the purpose of life? Why are we here? Are we just born here like cats and dogs and birds, just to live, chirp, die, reproduce the species and die? Is that the whole purpose of the human race? Why is the human being different from all others? Why do we not go instinctively toward things? Why do we have reason? Why do we have free will? Why do we have choices to make? Why do we have guilt? Why do we have conscience? Why are we different? What's the purpose of having all these things in us? I want the real knowledge. His ministers and secretaries said, Your Majesty, you happen to be living in a great country called Hindustan or India. It is full of knowledgeable people. You can go to any village, you will find holy people. Some of them have smeared ash on their bodies. Why? To remind them that this body will become ash. Some have put saffron-colored robes around them. Why? To remind them this body will be burnt in fire. All getting reminders put on themselves to say, don't waste your time in this world. The end will be ash or fire, or you will be consumed, buried, you will be dust. Nothing will be left of this body. They are wearing these costumes as constant reminders. Therefore, they have great knowledge. Why don't you call them? The king said, how can I call them? He said, have a feast. They love these feasts. So he held a big feast and called it a holy spiritual feast, so that you attract these kind of people. To the big feast, a lot of food was served, and a lot of these people wearing strange costumes came there, and they ate the food, enjoyed themselves, sat with their books and their scriptures, and the king wanted real knowledge, so he disguised himself as an ordinary person, as a seeker of truth. And in that disguise, incognito, he walked in their midst and he listened to their talk. And he was surprised that they were talking not of the truth inside, they were talking of how much they learned from the books. They could repeat the scriptures by heart. They could talk all fanciful words of every language of the world. But after a while he found that each one of them was so full of this ego, I know more, that not only were they arguing about these things, they came to blows, willing to hit each other with anger because of the spiritual knowledge that they had. The king was shocked. Is this the spiritual knowledge? He thought a spiritual person would be calm, have no anger, would be under self-control, would have humility, and would share whatever he has with happiness and reside in the will of the Lord. He had a different concept. And here are these people fighting with each other over the great knowledge of God that they have, the great knowledge of the truth. He found they had no knowledge. They only had words, words, words. He felt disappointed and came back to the palace and told his secretaries and friends there, look, I am very disappointed. I thought I will be able to get some truth at least. I got nothing. These people are ego-driven scholars. They have learned so much from the books. They are reading the books over and over again without doing anything that the book is telling them to do. The book speaks of going within. They talk of outside. The book tells them to love everyone. They are fighting each other. They are almost like those people who want to go to paradise. There's a paradise on earth, some people say. It's called Hawaii. Some people get a book, get a guidebook. It describes everything about Hawaii. The beautiful beaches, the beautiful dances, the beautiful skirts that they wear and the flowers, the lace that they wear and they dance, wiggly, wiggly, you know. And they read that in the book and they are very happy. Then they read it again. Then they read it 10 times. They say, we are in Hawaii. That's our state. How can you be in Hawaii by reading a book? A book is a description of what is there. It does not substitute the paradise. Just by going on reading, you don't go there. You can buy a time schedule of an airline and keep on reading all the flights that go to Hawaii. This flight goes from Chicago to Honolulu on this airline. You read all the airlines and keep on reading every day. Read it 20 times a day and read it with your hands folded. And when it looks up, you won't reach there. The point I'm making is simple. Reading is something different. The experience of what you are reading is different. The king, Janak, found that these people had just been reading. They had no experience. They would be different people if they had experience. He told his secretaries, I am disappointed. I wanted real knowledge. They said, King, you did not do enough publicity. You only called local people. This is a vast country. You should have a 7-day feast. Like the Kwanzaa. Like other big celebrations. 7-day feast. Therefore, call people from all over the world. The whole world was just part of India. Call them. Send people, they should, with a beat of drum, call people. The king wants all the learned, holy people, all enlightened people, all the mystics and all the yogis and all the sadhus and all people who have gone within. Come, he's giving a feast for 7 days. He also said, King, improve upon the menu, which the king promptly did. He said, I am willing to give up my whole wealth for the sake of this knowledge. What is food? He served all the food. And he had a 7-day big convention. And all the holy men came from all over the country. And they assembled in little camps. It was a very big camp this time. And they had little tents in which they sat. And they opened up their scriptures. And they discoursed to everyone. They discoursed to a few of their own followers who sat with hypnotized looks on their faces. Because that was their own teacher. Then they discoursed to other teachers who wouldn't accept them. And ultimately, the king saw the same thing again. They were so full of the ego of their own knowledge. They again argued. And argument was so strong, it looked like the words they were arguing were more real than the truth. The king was disappointed. He found the same thing happening. They were willing to come to blows with each other to prove they were right. They were even proving that the same book said two different things, according to their interpretation. The king was totally disappointed after seeing 7 days of this ritual going on. He said, I am totally disgusted and disappointed that all these people whom we worship and we acknowledge as people of God, people who have realized the Lord, all they have realized are a few words. And they have nothing more to offer. He went to his secretaries, ministers, counselors and said, I am disappointed. This is not the kind of knowledge I wanted. I wanted real knowledge. And I want it now. And I want it instantly. Which makes one believe that King Janak might have been an American in a past life. He wanted instant knowledge. And the counselors told the king, Your Majesty, if you want that kind of knowledge, you won't get a teacher who will come to your feast. He said, but is there such a teacher? He said, such teachers are called perfect living masters. They are human beings like us. They don't have to put on any costume. They don't have to put on any ash on their body. They don't have to wear saffron and orange colored robes. They are constantly living in the will of the Lord. They have realized the will of the Lord within themselves. They are in touch with that spirit constantly 24 hours. They don't have to find something to tell you. They are the thing they tell you themselves. They don't speak from books. They don't talk that so and so said this. They talk from their own knowledge. They speak with authority and not like the scribes. They do not speak like those who have lived in a library. They speak like those who have visited the house of the Lord. Therefore, king, if you really want true knowledge, go to that man sitting on the bank of the river. He is not that beautiful or handsome, but he's got sharp eyes. There's a sparkle in his eyes. His body is deformed. He's got humps on his body. He's hunchbacked. In fact, he is not hunchbacked once, he's got 8 folds on his body. We call him the 8-fold hunchback, which means Ashta Bakar, which means 8 folds. His body is deformed, but his eyes are sharp. He is one of those mystics who can give you the true knowledge. The king said, take me there instantly. So they took King Janak to the little hut of Ashtabakar, the mystic, who was sitting with a few of his friends. And Ashtabakar saw the king. He said, King, welcome. He said, I have not come as a king, I have come as a seeker of truth. Come to my palace and give me the truth. He said, King, you have come with this humility, obviously after experience with other holy men. I will certainly come to you and give you the truth that you want. An appointment was made. And on that day, the king invited all his relatives, all the kinsmen, all neighboring kings also, princesses, princesses, all the ladies and men in great glamour and galore, wearing their best jewelry. It was a great occasion. The king invited everybody. So it's the greatest day. We are going to get true knowledge. So all the hall, the auditorium was filled up with glitter. They were all royalty and nobility sitting there. When Ashtabakar, accompanied by 4 or 5 of his disciples, arrived at the door. And as is the wont, the habit in India, he took off his shoes at the entrance to the hall. And he walked in. The king had placed 2 chairs on the dais, one for him and one for himself. And he wanted that he should address the people and give them true knowledge. As Ashtabakar, the bent man, walked slowly, the people were surprised. They thought they'd have a nice, good-looking, tall professor to give them true knowledge. And here was a crooked man, a man with a deformed body, walking slowly. They began to laugh and murmur and giggle. What has the king done? What kind of joke is he playing on us? That he thinks we'll get this knowledge from this deformed man? So there was murmur going on as Ashtabakar rose and sat on the chair. And the king said, Master, I want you to give me true knowledge. He said, King, what is the price of leather today? He said, I don't understand you. I thought I have invited you here to give us true spiritual knowledge. What has the price of leather to do with it? He said, well, I just asked the price of leather because I thought there were so many leather merchants here. He says, no, master, they are not leather merchants. They are my royalty, nobility, my kinsmen. They are all high status people sitting here. He said, but the way they looked at my skin, I thought they might like to buy it. I thought they were leather merchants. They were not interested in me, they were looking at my body. Then the people thought this man has some sense of humor. At least we should listen to what he's going to say. He said, King, Ashtabakar said, King, what do you want? He said, I want true knowledge. I want the knowledge that gives all the answers. I want the knowledge that comes instantly, and I want it now. Ashtabakar looked at him, he said, that kind of knowledge has a price. You have to pay a price for that knowledge. He said, I am willing to pay any price. All the coffers of my treasuries are open to you. You can take all the jewelry, you can take all the wealth I have, you can even take all the palaces that I have. Everything that I own as a king is yours. Give me that knowledge. He said, no, but that's not the price. I want 3 things. He said, I'll give you 10. He said, no, I only want 3. He said, what are those? Give me your body. 2, give me your wealth. 3, give me your mind. When you've given me these, I'll give you instant knowledge. That was a very strange price tag. Even King Janak, the great seeker, had not heard of that. But he said, yes, master, my body is yours. All my wealth is yours. And my mind is yours. The master said, this body with which you are sitting here and known as King Janak now belongs to me? He said, sure. If you are sure, I want this body to be taken from this chair here and placed on the shoes that I left outside of the door. King Janak got up. He said, I have to give him this because I have agreed to the price. So he began to walk slowly towards the door where the shoes were lying. And the people began to murmur again. This is a most foolish sight we have seen. That the king is being led by a crazy man. How will he get knowledge by sitting on the shoes? And the king said, ignore these people. They don't know what I am getting. They don't know my question. I am looking for the truth. They think I am the great king with all that wealth. When this thought came to him, he was halfway through toward the shoes. And Ashtabakar shouted from the stage, King, you have no business to think of that wealth. You already given it to me. Oh my God, I forgot. I have no wealth because I given it to him. When this thought came to him, he shouted, Ashtabakar, King, you have no business to think what you gave me or not gave me. Even the thought you cannot have, you gave your mind to me. And the king caught his head in his hand like this. Oh my God, I can't even think. I have to be just by myself, nothing else. No body, no wealth, no mind. When he was in that state for an instant, got the knowledge that he was looking for. Ashtabakar said, King, you have to go no further. Come back. King Janak came back and sat on the chair. Ashtabakar said, King Janak, have you got the knowledge you wanted? He said, yes, master. Any questions? No, master. Any doubts? No, master. Did it take longer than what I had promised? He says, no, it took less time because my definition of an instant was the time I take when I put my foot into that, what is it?
Stirrup.
Stirrup?
Yep, stirrup.
Of the horse and ride and jump on the saddle. That is my instant. But you gave me this knowledge faster than that. It was a smaller instant than that. The master said, Janak, I don't want your body. I don't want your wealth. I don't even want your mind. I have plenty of problems with my own. Take them. But remember one thing. If you can remember what I am now going to tell you, you will be on the spiritual path always. Remember that although I have given your body and your wealth and your mind to you, remember they belong to Ashtavakar all the time. If you can remember that this body you are going to use from now onwards belongs to the Master. If you can remember that all the wealth you have does not belong to you, but belongs to the Master. If you can remember that the mind you are using is not you, but a machine loaned to you, a computer loaned to you by the Lord, by the Master, and you are using it for the rightful purpose, you are on the spiritual path. You will find the truth. You got the truth in an instant now. That was just a sampling. Now do meditation. Now follow the course for 20 years, you'll get it again. He said, I want to make the point that in spite of all this experience you had, the experience showed the truth exists within you. The experience showed what are the obstacles to your getting the truth. Your identification with the body, that you are the body. So long as we think we are the body, we cannot get the truth. Because the body dies, goes to a funeral home. The spirit does never go to a funeral home. Spirit outlives. If you think this wealth is yours, it never goes with you even when you die physically. There was another great, well-known conqueror, Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great kept on conquering country after country and reached India and conquered most of India. And he looted the temples and got all the gold laden on the camels, on horses, and on his way back. He was on his way back to Alexandria when he fell very sick. You must have heard the story how he was so sick. He actually died on the way. But a gypsy had told him that you can never die. You are immortal. Why? You cannot die unless the earth turns into silver and the sky turns into gold. Till that time, there is no way you can die. He said the earth will never turn into silver and the sky will never turn into gold, so he will never die. When he fell so sick, they spread his silver armor on the ground and made him lie on it. And they put the little umbrella, gold umbrella, right on top. And said, King, we are giving you rest here. He says, I know my end has come. There's the silver below me and there's the gold on top of me. But I want you to get some doctor, get some physician, some Ved, some Hakim, somebody who knows the art to let me reach my capital. I'll gladly die there. They said, the doctors are on entourage with you. Nobody can save you, Alexander. He said, I am willing to give all the wealth that I gathered on all these camels and horses for anybody who can give me a few more moments to live. They said, Alexander, all your wealth is not worthwhile at this time. The time of death has come, nothing will work. He said, I can't believe it, that I, during my conquering days, made so many women into widows, so many children into orphans, to acquire this wealth. It won't give me a few breaths of life. It's not worthwhile. Okay, I'll die, but when I die and you put me in my coffin, keep my hand outside, so people can see that even Alexander the Great went empty-handed when he died. Are these the things that we are collecting? King Janak said, do not think any of this that is around you belongs to you. It belongs to the Lord. If you can remember that your body is given to you temporarily to be used for a specific purpose, the purpose being to find the truth within itself. No other body can find it. If you can use your wealth for the maintenance of your duties, for the maintenance of your health, and for no other purpose, think it belongs to the Lord. And if you can use your mind like a computer, Make it go fast, but don't take instructions from it. You will find the truth within yourself. He gave a great lesson to him. But the lesson was in the form in which he brought himself with his humor and his love into the heart of King Janak. It's the love and the compassion. Because when a person is in touch with that truth inside, in touch with the Creator, the qualities of the Creator come into that person. And the most obvious qualities are the quality of love and compassion. If you find a person angry, trying to teach you something with no love and compassion, run away from him. A person of God must always show, even show to the enemies. There can be no enemies of a person of God. Even if you kill him, he will love you. Such is the quality. How can you kill a person of God? Because he has become vulnerable like us to be our friend. So we can listen to him. Therefore, think of this situation where the truth is inside. We cannot find it. We have to go outside and look for a human being whom we don't want to accept. He teases us with his love, coaxes us, brings us around. And after we love him, he says, no, that's not the reason why I loved you. Go inside your own self and find it. Don't follow me. But Master, we learned everything from you. How can we not follow you? He said, don't follow me because what you see is illusion. Even I am inside. There was a nice yogi, Vedanta man, who came here 100 years ago. His name was Vivekananda. He spoke in Chicago more than 100 years ago in the World Congress of Religions. And he made a great speech here. In the speech, he told people about the knowledge that he had acquired from his master Ramakrishna in India. And he told them, what you are looking at outside of yourself is illusion. It's Maya. It's not real. It's created so that you can fulfill your relationships and your karma and your duties and obligations. That's why they all look real. This reality is being created for you to go through a process of life. And the reality is being created so that in this reality you can find the true reality inside you. That is the purpose. Therefore, take it that everything you are seeing around you is illusion. After saying that, he added, Vivekananda said, I have been telling you for 3 days that everything around you is illusion, unreal. That means you are looking at me, I must be unreal too. If everything around you is unreal, my talk must be unreal too. How come I am at the same time telling you everything around you is unreal and then trying to speak to you? The unreality is trying to speak to you. What am I doing? He said, there's a purpose. Every other part of unreality around you looks real and pulls you to itself. This unreality is equally unreal. But this unreality pushes you within yourself and makes you get in touch with reality. Therefore, although we are here in unreality, there's a part of unreality that comes around us, including one whom we call the Savior, we call the Master, we call the perfect living Master. Equally unreal. What is the reality of that Master? Where does he operate from? Obviously, if he is the Master, he operates from within you, not outside. Therefore, remember, the true Master, the perfect living Master, has always been inside us and never outside. What we see outside is the necessity to find something that will push us to the true Master within. What is the form of the Master? Outside it can take any form like our form. Inside it has always one form, the form of the Word, the form of the Spirit, the form of that which created everything, including the Creator. That is the form of the Master. The Master is the Word. And when the Master, the Word, becomes flesh, it is an illusion to take us back to the Word within. Therefore, when we come across such a person, who is word made flesh, who's come outside to push us back to the word inside. There must be some characteristics. How do we find such a one? There are too many masters going around these days. Many of them say, we'll pray for you if you give us a check. Many of them are running businesses. That mastership has become a big business, especially in countries with great stress, great social stress, great personal stress, psychological stress. They come like opium, like wine, like drugs. And we go to them and put our money in their hands. And they teach us nothing but to read more, to do the very thing that we are talking about that don't give us knowledge. What are the signs of a master? How will we find and recognize such a master? If we are blind, can we really find a man with eyes? That's a big question. There was a story of a number of blind people who were locked up in a room. The room was flush and the door was also flush with the wall. Nobody could know where the door was to get out. So these blind people are groping around, roaming around the room, touching the wall with their hands to find out where is the door. They say, we wish we had somebody with eyes who could tell us where the door is and we could go out. We want to find somebody with eyes. And they hear somebody has just walked in. There is somebody who came through the door. So a man with eyes who could see came in. The blind man said, let's find him. Where he is. How can the blind man find the man who is looking at them? So they go around, we are looking for the man with eyes who just walked in. He'll take us out. We are finding a man with eyes, a man with light. He'll take us out. And this man who's got his eyes open and looks at all these blind people going round and round, said, this man is really very sincere. Out of compassion and love, the man with eyes goes in front of him and stretches his hands in front. And the blind man grasps them. Says, I knew I will find you one day. Who has found who? It's not the blind man who found the man with eyes. It was the man with eyes with compassion and love who found the blind man. When we say we can find a master in this world, we are talking like the blind man. We cannot find the master. Nobody can. If you try to find, you will end up with so many masters you won't know which one to pick up. My teacher, the great master, Baba Sawan Singh in India used to say, if you really want to go and study, there are more masters than disciples in this world. More people are trying to be masters. They have nothing. It's just business. True master is very hard to come across. Yet, it is said, if you seek, you will find. It does not say if you find, you will find. The truth is, not if you find, you will find. The truth is, if you seek, you will find. What is seeking? Seeking is that cry in the heart. Lord, I am fed up. Lord, I have had enough of this. Why won't you appear? Lord, why don't you hold my hands? I am ready. And if you are ready, a stranger will come in your life and hold your hands. Don't question. Don't question the wisdom of the Lord. Don't say, how far has this teacher gone? You've not even gone to primary grade and you're talking of whether he has a PhD or not. No. See how far this man with eyes will take you. When you've gone that far, somebody will take you from there further. Never worry about this thing. People waste their time. We are looking for a master who's real. They never find one. Everybody is unreal. In fact, even the perfect living master is unreal. How can they find one? The true master has to be found by seeking in your heart. And not seeking so loud that it attracts the fakes. You should seek so quietly in your heart. And when you are ready, the perfect living master will appear. That is why in India they say, when the chela is ready, the guru appears. When the disciple is ready, the master appears. Nobody says when the chela is ready or the disciple is ready, he finds the master. The master finds the disciple. How does the master find a disciple? What is his mechanism? Is there a way he does it? Yes. There are two wills prevailing in our life here. One is the will of this computer we call the mind. And we've all become mental minded. Because we think by thinking hard we'll find everything. And therefore the will of the mind is one will that runs through our life. And the will of the Lord is the other will. And there is no third will. When you rely through seeking on the will of the Lord and not on the will of the mind, the master will definitely appear in your life. I am saying it at my age 72 years. I have seen all my life any seeker anywhere in the world who sought with that intensity inside his heart without uttering any words outside, the master appeared in his life. I'm not kidding with you. I am saying this is the way, because such a person is seeking in the will of the Lord. What's the difference between the mind's will and the will of the Lord? The difference is the mind says, I want this. It's linked with attachments, desires of all kinds. It's linked with the senses. It's linked with the external world. That's how our mind is functioning. And how is the will of the Lord functioning? The will of the Lord is functioning with everything else. Everything else is the will of the Lord. One mystic was asked, you talk of the will of the Lord, but we don't know what is the will of the Lord. Even the mind is the Lord's creation. Everything is Lord's. How can we find out the will of the Lord? In this life where we have been given an illusion of mental will, how can we look for the will of the Lord? He says it's very simple. If the Lord has given a spade in your hand, he has expressed his will. Dig. If a man by circumstances finds a pen in his hand, the Lord has expressed his will. Write. If a man finds himself on a horse through circumstances and coincidences, the Lord has expressed his will. Ride. What's different? What is so difficult about it? The mystic says, watch out for the circumstances which are being created not by your mind, but by the Lord. If you can keep your mind in check and look at the circumstances and coincidences that are happening around you all the time, you will have no difficulty in finding the will of the Lord. Well, maybe you may have some doubts and the mind may speak words in you. No, this is just a coincidence, this is just a chance. Why are you giving it so much importance? If that happens, look to the second voice inside you. Not the first voice. The first voice is the voice of your thought. It takes place in time. Even the smallest thought has a duration. 1 second, 2 seconds. But there is something that comes in without time called intuition, hunch, gut feeling, gut knowledge. Comes instantly. No time, no space, no pause. When that comes, it's also the will of the Lord. What happens if that voice, which is not your thought, comes in you and circumstances around you? You're driving and there's a billboard saying the same thing that the voice said. You need more proof of the will of the Lord? There it is. But this is not your mind creating it. Therefore, if you live in the will of the Lord, you are on the spiritual path. When you live in the will of the Lord, the master, the human being, the perfect living master who is made flesh will appear in your life. A lot of people want to go by the masters they have not seen personally with their eyes. They want to go by masters who have been acknowledged in the past. It's great. We have had some of the greatest masters in the past. We just celebrated the birthday of one few days ago. And we had celebrated the birthday of another one. I noticed there are some disciples of Maharaj Baba Charan Singh sitting here. We celebrated his birthday only a couple of weeks ago. And we have celebrated the birthday of several masters earlier. We acknowledge that they were there. They were great masters. But to say we'll get the teaching from the same master and not wait for one who is living in flesh today is like saying, I want to study my philosophy with Socrates personally and not with the modern day professor. We'll never pass our exams. If a man wants to become a doctor, Says, I want to go to Hippocrates for my knowledge and not to medical school. He's a dangerous doctor. He'll get no patients. Just like we need a modern day teacher, a modern day doctor, a modern day professor, we always need the same Lord in a flesh that is open to tell us today, no, don't do this. One of the reasons why the old doctrines don't help us is because our mind twists them. Twists the teachings to suit its own desires and say that is what the teaching is. I talked to a friend of mine, I said this intuition is God's message. If you get it, act on it. Then the next time he met me, he said, you know, I've been working very hard to make the intuition get me these things. This is a mental game. But we play the same mental game with our spiritual seeking. We play the same mental games and we say we want this, we want this. And we are really talking only with our mind, to our desires and attachments in this world. Therefore, there must be somebody who can come in our life and say, no, this is our mind, this is not the Lord speaking. Therefore, we need a living human being, a living person. It's very hard. This is the hardest question, that we find a living being is too ordinary for us. If he is not ordinary, supposing he performs public miracles. Supposing a man walked in here and he walked on air 6 feet above us. Imagine a man, while I'm talking, we are sitting, Bhagwan is sitting here, and a man walks into this hall, walked 6 feet above, because he has extraordinary powers. He's a perfect master. What will be our reaction? Many of the ladies here will swoon and faint to see such a scene. Many men will swoon too. They're no different from the ladies. Many others will say there is a trick. There are some wires invisible that are going on. And many others who will think it's a real feat going on will look with astonishment, with awe, with fear, but not with love. You will find the only thing missing in that scene will be love. And love is the main language of a perfect living master, main language of God, the Creator himself. Therefore, these kinds of great trickeries with the laws of nature do not reveal a true miracle. A true miracle is that which happens in your heart. You cannot explain it. You know it's a miracle. When you try to tell somebody, they say, oh, that was just a coincidence. That's a true miracle. Such true miracles have happened. And anybody with a mind can find fault with it and say, no, there was a trick involved. It's a true miracle. So when you find somebody who is so exalted, cannot come down to earth, he cannot have love for us, nor can we have love and devotion for such a person. On the other hand, imagine the person walking like this. When he reaches this point, he falls down. All of us will run to help him. And for the first time, we'll have some love for the man. He's like us. Therefore, remember that the person who can really help us must be like us. Must come down to us, to our level. Talk like us. Come to the ridicule of our level, if necessary. Be assaulted by us if necessary. Be crucified by us if necessary. But must come to our level. So that we can have love for that person and he can show his unconditional compassion and love for us. And that's the difference between us and such a person. Such a person's love is unconditional. You will notice that person loves you if you love him. That person loves you if you don't love him. That person loves you if you hate him. That person loves you if you kill him. It's a different kind of love. It takes time to know that this is going on. When you are accosted by such a person, you know this is different. He may be ordinary outside, he may be ordinary in behavior, but this love is not ordinary. This unconditional love we cannot even cultivate. Our mind stops us in the way. We change love into hatred so quickly. Here's a man who converts hatred into love. So love is the key. And you will find that love is what will hold us and take us beyond our mind, because the mind cannot reach the state of love. So that is why these people who come, they have a difference from the others. Difficult to find the difference. The great master was asked that in democracies, like the Western democracies, where people say we are all equal, how can you say one person can be a master and another not? Are they not all masters? He said potentially the same Lord is in all of us. Potentially all of us are masters. Potentially there is no difference between a master and another person. Inside is the same Lord is sitting there. Difference is very minor. Between an ordinary seeker and the perfect living master, the difference is very, very minor. What's the difference? The master is in touch with the reality inside and we are not. That's the difference. He gave an example that if you put a large number of radio sets out here, in those days there weren't television sets, modern day master could add television also. If you put a large number of radio sets and television sets and disconnect them from the batteries and from the power source, none of them will give you any news. If you connect one with the power source, that one alone will give you the news of the world. Such is the difference between the men. The man who is in connection, who has the connection within, will give you the news of within. But those who are not so connected still need to receive the news and then get connected. So therefore remember that a person who will come into your life, who will find you when you are seeking, will have this great characteristic of having unconditional love and compassion and be ordinary. What characteristics can we find in such a person? Well, some are obvious, that he must be full of love and compassion. Second is, if he is truly in touch with the Lord, he cannot say these are my people and these are not, because all the people are Lord's. His message must be universal for the whole world. All the world must be his children, not a few. He cannot distinguish between them based upon the color of the skin, or the language they speak, or the dress they wear, or where they come from, or their religious beliefs or so on. He will not come to convince them of religious beliefs. He will not convince them of what dress to wear. He will not tell them what language to speak. He said, do what you like, but go within and find the truth. That's where I found it. Such a person, if he is really so universal, is in touch with the Creator, he'll come here and be in touch with the whole of creation equally. Therefore, he will respect the creation. He will respect every living thing in this creation and not say, let's kill this and keep the other alive. Another good sign. If a person is truly in touch with the Lord, he will come to give us something, not take anything from us. If he is a beggar asking us for money and donations and these things, how can he be a person in touch with the Lord? He is come to give, not to take. So remember, all the mystics, they need not have woven their thread and worked on the shoes when they could get millions of dollars from their disciples. They worked hard on their vocations. They set an example to us. They have been farmers. They have been carpenters. There have been cobblers. They are well known. And their disciples were rich and famous. But they still kept on doing that work to set an example that we should work with our own hands, not live on the charity of another, because it only adds up to our debt to build up charity from another. Therefore, such a person will be a giver, not a taker. He will work with his hands, he'll work with his head, he'll work, take his own income, share that with the others, and then still keep on working. Of course, if he wants to take care of the people who come to him for logistical reasons, they bring the food, he'll say distribute it and eat it. They bring the money, use it for yourself. Not for me personally, but for yourself, sure. If I have to serve you, such a master will say, I don't mind going begging around the world and collect what I need to serve you, but for myself, I will not touch even a tumbler of water. I'll burn myself. Such is the nature of these people. By the very fact that they are in touch with the Spirit, they become so different. Secondly, when they come here, their miracles will be performed in our hearts. Their life will be so ordinary that when they perform an obvious miracle, like telling us exactly what we were thinking when we go to them, He said, Master, you did a great thing. This is exactly what I was thinking. He said, what were you thinking? This is the beauty. There's a great beauty and joy in this kind of a relationship. In fact, if you ask me, there is no true friendship, no enjoyable friendship in this whole world except the friendship of a master. That's so beautiful. Because it is not only here outside, it is inside too. It lasts beyond our bodies. Therefore, it's a great friendship. So when such a person comes, he will have these characteristics. And since he has put on himself the incognito of being ordinary and being so extraordinary within, he does not have to say at any time, I am a master. He doesn't have to say, I am great. If he is great, he won't have to say. If he is not great, he has to tell you, look, I am great. Do you believe it? If he is great, he says, I am humble, I am nobody. I am nobody. I am just a little fellow who want to be your friend. I am the woodcutter in the forest. He will not say, I am the king, because it doesn't make any sense to say, I am the king. His humility will be exceptional. I'll tell you the exception of that humility. Our humility is made from our tongue. I am humble. He knows that this humility itself is ego. You find, what is the ego? Ego is a great wall between us and the Lord. Ego is what separates us. We think we are separate from the Lord. Therefore, we build this wall of ego. When a person says, I am very humble, I am very small, he knows people like this. I must be really great that I can be so humble. That's a very subtle ego. If a man comes and says, I am very great, you can pull his leg and throw him down. Where's your greatness? Let's see. We can destroy that kind of ego in a minute. But when a man comes and says, I am nobody, I am very humble, I am very this thing, please, I am your servant. Look into his eyes, he's thinking, boy, that's great to be that humble. It's a very subtle ego. But it blocks you from the Lord the same anyway. Because it separates you. When a person says, I am humble, the I becomes more important than the Lord. The ego is not humble or great. Ego is I. I am separate. The truth is we are never separate from the Lord. The truth is we are not conscious because we are individual. The truth is we are conscious because we are sharing the consciousness of the Lord at all times, which has never been separated and never divided. We are participating in that consciousness. We are not separated. But thinking we are separated gives rise to our ego. Therefore, to be able to say, I am very humble, is not a demolition of ego. The way to demolish ego is to talk of nothing but the Master. Talk of nothing but the Lord. He is the doer. He is the doer. Everything is done by Him. Don't bring I into it at all. If you can live a life of that kind, of praising the Lord all the time and not bringing I into it at all, then you are truly humble. Therefore, a loud statement praising the Lord, Lord, I've done a great thing, is not an act of arrogance, it's an act of humility. On the other hand, if you're talking about I and self and what you did, it's an act of arrogance, even if you're talking of your humility and your spiritual prowess. Therefore, remember that these signs that you will see in a perfect living Master, the compassion, the way He finds you, we call it all these things, we sum up and we say in a little phrase, the grace of the Lord. What do we come to the conclusion? It's all right to know, have all this knowledge that I've shared with you. It's all right to understand all these things. It's all right to listen to this. Most people listen on 1 year and let it go out. We are like the same man who accompanied Kabir. We are fine when we listen to all this. We are high. And we are willing to sing the praise and go out and forget, and then we deal with the real world outside. The truth is, unless there is the grace of the Lord, we get nothing. The truth is, unless there is grace of the Lord, we don't even seek Him. The truth is that seekers are there. And therefore, it's the grace that's given us. If we ever have to pray for anything, don't pray for things. They won't last. Don't pray for relationships. They are unreal. Don't pray for any worldly thing. It's unreal. Pray for the grace of the Lord. It's worth it. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to be with you.
You have some questions? You're most welcome. Anything you would like to ask Puri sir?
Or answer.
You are most welcome.
They all have their answers inside them. They got the answers, each one of them got the answers inside.
This is the candy for the children. You need not be hesitant or shy about it. I have told you on many occasions you must learn how to make right use of those mercies through which the Lord sends us His grace.
You talked about grace and how you want to pray for anything, pray for grace. Can you talk about that a little bit as far as praying for grace? What exactly are you meaning?
What I am meaning by praying for grace is an admission that we don't know what is best for us. An admission that the Lord knows better than us. An admission, Lord, you know better what's good for us. Lord, you know best what we deserve, what we should get, what makes us grow. Lord, give us that which you think is proper for us. Lord, give us your grace. That's it.
Can you speak a little bit about desire, as opposed to desire down here and desiring the path or the knowledge of the path?
Yes, certainly the question is about desire for things here and desire for inner things like seeking. The difference between desire over here and desire inside is that the desire here for things which are not real, won't go with us, creates attachment. The attachment brings us back and becomes a hurdle to our looking in the other direction. People meditate, they close their eyes, and what is it that pulls them out? You will find are the attachments outside, rising out of desires for these things. Desire here cannot be quenched by not fulfilling it. Some people think, well, I desired something in my head, but I didn't follow it up, so it's fine. It's not fine. Supposing I desire Shaky's C old pizza. I used to like when I came here. Shaky's pizza was popular. Now Pizza Hut has come and other pizza places have come. And I say, I want Shaky's pizza. They say, no, I'm not supposed to desire here. And then I do my meditation. Shaky's pizza will come all the time. In fact, there is a story of an American seeker who went to the Himalayas to find a master who had a mantra. Mantra, you understand, some holy words. He found there was a man sitting up in the Himalayas who had some holy words, and when you repeated those holy words, you got instant enlightenment. That's what the American seeker wanted. He took the plane out there, took the bus to the Himalayas, went to the mountain, and met that master. The master, I believe you have some holy words to repeat, which can give us enlightenment. He said, yes, I have. So will you give those words to me? Sure, you have come all this long way. Come close to me. I'll whisper them in your ear. So the seeker went close to him, and the master said the holy words are abracadabra. He says, what? I have come all this way to hear abracadabra? The master said, no, there's a little catch in this. You have to say abracadabra without thinking of bananas. And the man came every time he wanted to say abracadabra, bananas were there first. Master was proving a point that these desires tie us up with things here and don't let us go within. Therefore, the desire to go within can be obstructed by the desires here. And what do we do? The mind, human mind, is fond of pleasure. it's also fond of a variety of pleasures. Therefore, when the human mind seeks desires here and gets tied up here, it interrupts the spiritual course within. Unless we can find something more pleasurable inside. Actually, the desires get sublimated only when the inner desire gets an experience that's more pulling than the desires here. Till then, these desires keep you down, whether they are achieved or not. Therefore, the masters come into our life and they see what our desires are. And we find we are desiring all the things here. They pull us and they occasionally give us what is called a sampling of the inner pleasure. We all get it. And we say, wow, that was real. Wish I could get it. That loud sound I heard, that loud shabad, I wish I could get it once again. I saw the light, so much light. I've never seen that before. I don't know why it's not coming again. A sampling of that experience inside holds us, and the desire within is locked in with that. Because quite a bit of the spiritual path is done by us with our mind. In fact, the mind is our greatest enemy till it gets some fulfillment inside. It becomes our best friend when it gets some pleasure inside. The same mind that is now obstructing us from going within becomes useful to us when we get some pleasure inside. So the real way to get over the desires of this world and be pulled by the seeking and desire within is when something happens. Since it is not possible to get anything inside while the desires are pulling us out, we call it again the grace of the Lord. That it gives us a temporary, sudden experience, a miraculous experience, a spiritual experience that holds the mind. And then after that we say, I've seen it once, I want to go in again. I don't know how. I know it's not in my hands. I know someone has to nod and then I'll get it. So that is how the two nest. But if we feel that we can, with our own control of desires, go within, it's not possible. Again, it's grace. Because even when you say you control your desires, controlling desires means not fulfilling them. Remember, all our pattern of attachments here is based not upon what is actually happening, not an action. It's happening by our intention and desire. It's intention and desire that locks us into this world. It's not what we follow up from that. Even if we don't follow up, the desire locks us into an attachment right here. Therefore, we have to have the grace of the Lord who gives us a pleasurable, mentally pleasurable experience which we like. And then the love pulls us. There is nothing greater than the pull of the love of the Master. He really has only one tool to work with. All the teachers of the world will use intellectual tools. Here comes the Master, he uses one tool of love. He traps us in his love. We can't go anywhere. That's what happens. And that is how he pulls us with it. If a person goes somewhere and we tie ourselves to the coattails, we'll go where that person goes. Since the Master goes within to the Lord, we catch the coattails, we go there. So it's a question of love and devotion. The relationship based upon love and devotion takes us and sublimates the desires of this world. Yes.
When we speak of the soul and the superego and the id, are we talking about the same entity?
No, we are not. When we are talking of the ego and the superego, we are talking of the mind in its various forms and realms. This body of ours just creates for us an experience of a physical world. Supposing we didn't have the body, physical body, we would still be there. When we die or have near-death experiences, you can see people still can move around and have almost a body which is not visible, an ethereal, subtle body, an astral body, whatever name you give it. And that astral body contains the same ego. That's right here. The ego is still the same and based upon the impressions on the mind. There are two kinds of mental impressions we carry. One of events which create karma and future events for us. And one is called sanskar, or a totality of impressions that makes our attitude. And the attitude plus the events makes our life. The ego and superego. The superego is one that is beyond this physical. It's still there. It even transcends the astral. Even the astral is transcended when we go into what is called the causal, which is pure mental state. There are no senses. When the sensory system even is left behind, and we still have time, space, and our spirit and superego and the soul, the package is together. The superego is still not the soul. Still the supermind, still the universal mind. When we transcend the mind altogether, transcend time, space, cause, effect, all logic, then we go into the soul. It does not mean the soul is living there. If the soul were not there, soul is consciousness. What makes the mind alive is consciousness. What makes the senses alive is consciousness. What makes this body alive is consciousness. Soul is inside all these. Let us take it like as if soul is consciousness, it is the power of awareness of the Lord, which we participate in. And when we cover it up with the mind, which is like a causal body around it, and an astral body of senses, sensory systems, and a physical body like this, we become what we are here. The soul is at the core of it. And the soul and these bodies combined give us a feeling of separation. I want to tell you this feeling of separation. When I was young, somebody told me that the Lord is like an ocean and our soul is a drop of that ocean. And we have been separated. One day we have to travel on a spiritual journey and go and merge with that Lord and become one with Him. Like the drop has to go and merge in the ocean and become the ocean. This bothered me a lot. It bothered me that if I am a drop, I am something. If I get merged in the ocean, I have become nothing. The ocean is already there, doesn't need one more drop. One more drop is not going to make any difference. Who is the gainer? I lose my identity, God gets nothing. Where's the spiritual journey? I felt very bad about it. I said the ocean is getting nothing, I am losing my drop identity, I am losing my soul. God's total soul is getting nothing. Who is the gainer of the spiritual path? It's just a fib. It took me quite a while to understand that this was not the situation. It took me quite a while that even if one soul is taken out of God, that will not be God anymore, then God is always perfect. That this is not an ocean from which a drop has left out. I realize that we are the drop in the ocean, never left it. We are the soul in God, never left it. The only thing that happened was the contraction of awareness. We got an awareness, we just a drop. When that awareness enlarges, we discover we are always the ocean. Never left anything, never joined it. Similarly, it is not that we have really left God and come away somewhere in this world. It's all happening right there, within the Creator. That we are part of the same Spirit. And the awareness has locked us through this causal and astral and physical systems into believing we are separate. We have to go back and find something. We are already there. We have to remove these illusions from us. And we'll find the truth of our identity. Now that makes sense. The drop was always the ocean. The drop lost its awareness, has found its awareness. Everybody is a gainer. So that is why the soul is really the consciousness. It's the power that makes us alive and uses all these other bodies as covers upon itself. Yes, anybody from here? Yes.
Earlier you were speaking about different incidents and circumstances that may occur in your life to individuals that may have an awareness of there being some connectedness in it. Did you say that that was like an intention trying within?
Yes. I was saying that if you want to live in the will of the Lord, look out for those kinds of circumstances in life. Sometimes we refer to them as coincidences. Just a coincidental thing that somebody just came and talked to you. Coincidental thing, you opened a page in the book at a certain page. It's just a coincidence you read a billboard meaning something different and written there. Just a coincidence, somebody you never expected to meet in 20 years suddenly turns up at the corner. It's a coincidence that this particular word you never heard. It's a coincidence that this number on the car license plate has exactly what you were thinking of this morning. These are very small things, but they're showing us something else operating, that we are not operating separated from the universe, that we're part of it, that the whole thing is one universal single consciousness in which we are participating. They're all linked together, and therefore within the system we can get signs and ideas of where that link comes. I'll tell you another thing, an experience. People who have been seeking the Lord, the more they have sought, the more these coincidences have grown in their life. There must be some correction. People say, ever since I came on the path, these funny things are happening all the time now. So there it is, the connection. So watch out for those. But don't let the mind interpret it. Take them for what they are. If you get an intuitive hunch, you see something outside and they match, boy, you're getting a message direct from the Lord. Yes.
No, you were talking about the ocean and the drop of water and how you consider that some things that, well, I have been considering. Grace is something that I've been considering lately. Like, I noticed that a lot of times when stuff happens the way that we want it, we say that, this is grace. And it seems to me, and I may be wrong, but my thought is that, like, grace is something that always is. And that, it seems that when we walk into, when something happens, there's an agreement to what we want it to be, then we say that was God's grace. But I mean, isn't grace always occurring? Isn't grace just what is? It's the way. And even if something occurs that's not in alignment to what you want or what you would think is great, it's still grace.
I agree with you.
We don't see it as...
I agree with you. Grace is always grace and is always flowing. It's like the rain. But if you put the cup upside down, nothing gets filled in. Grace flows all the time, never stops. It's our cup of attention that we turn around and capture the grace. When we don't, it just passes us by. We don't see it. The grace is always there. Now the question is, what about the grace in the form of getting things that we need here, material things? And what about the grace that takes us as seeker inside? Is there a difference in the two? There is no difference in the grace. It depends on the stage we are at. I'll give you a little story of a gardener. There's a gardener, one who works in a garden. We have these gardeners working in a garden, and there's a story of a gardener who comes and is watering a little plant. Such a small little plant he has put into the soil and is giving it feed, is giving fertilizer and is watering. And a man is walking, a young man says, "Old man, why are you wasting your time? Don't you see? Around this little plant there are so many weeds. You are watering and feeding the weeds and not the plant." And this gardener looks up and says, "Have you ever fed this plant?" He says, "No, but I'm seeing you do a foolish thing, so I'm telling you." He says, "Young man, I have brought up this plant many times. I know that when I am feeding this little plant, I am also feeding the weeds. And the weeds are growing with it, but the weeds don't grow more than this. The plant grows bigger. In fact, I have seen the plant grow so big, like a big bush, that under the shade of the same plant, the weeds wither away and die." When the Master comes here, the Lord comes into our life, He knows the weeds of our local desires. When we are on the spiritual path, He's watering them too. We say, "Boy, I got a lottery today. Boy, I won this thing. Boy, I got..." This was all grace. "I got some extra money on the boat." All grace. "I found the right numbers this time. My son was sick, he got well." It's all those weeds which are being watered, and we are experiencing those small graces. But when so much happens, our plant of love in the heart grows to a point when we say, "Lord, we want nothing else but you." We don't care for any of these things. It's a development. So all is grace. You're right. Thank you very much. Bhagwan, I'm very happy to see you here. Very happy to meet all brothers and sisters.
I want to thank Puri for coming and sharing his immense knowledge with us. We hope that we will be able to persuade him to return before the next Kwanzaa. I'd like to remind you that there is the retreat being planned for January, and those of you who plan on or will be interested in attending that retreat, make sure that you let Kiba, are you here, Kiba? Stand,
Yes, I
Kiba.
am.
Please let Kiba know about your intentions. You're all most welcome. There is no cost to those who are not staying overnight. And we would love to have your company there. And we would like to ask our guests today to please join us upstairs. There's repast, Barataji, and share some food. And let this grace continue to